The name of the show is The Way to Go. My name is Alan Bendich, and tonight Max Bendich is going to be my guest, and it's the further adventures of Max Bendich once again. So, Dad, oh yeah, by the way, he's my father. I got basically, there's a couple of things I'm interested in. Is like, you and Mom, you managed to survive 68 years of marriage together, and it's just, how did you guys, it was there were rough times, financial times, right? And there were good times, but you worked like dogs. You had a laundry store. You just, how did you manage it? And you had the McCarthy era. You had all these different things that were like negative influences. How did you manage to survive?
We must have had, excuse me, we must have had an idea that the most important thing is the family life. That's what we started out that way.
Right.
Dorothy and I.
Have a sip.
Dorothy and I started out that the family was the most important thing in our lives.
Right, and I know that if you look in the dictionary under selfless, you definitely would see you and Mom's face, because you guys did everything for the family. There's no question about it. You work like dogs. Right. You put the money away. You basically, and it was only for the family, and that's it.
As we said in the form of
in prior episodes,
we had a senior center, and Alan, that senior center, right, was our lives.
Right.
And we didn't have to cook.
Right.
Many things we didn't have to do.
Right. So so that was going to be the next question I asked, basically. Like, I guess at some point you were about 62. You got shot.
Yes.
Which we discussed in previous episodes, and I guess at that point you really slowed down your business, and you made a decision, I think, to retire early, which was around 62 years old. And you're 98 now, so you've been retired now for 36 years. But you were a young man when you retired.
Yes.
How did you? I guess the next step was going to the senior center. But did you have any plans when you? Do you remember?
No, we had no plans. Our future, we had nothing about planning for the future. It didn't occur to us, how are we going to live later?
Right.
Why? Because our expenses were low. We had a house,
right,
and we were lucky about one thing. We were GI mortgage,
right,
so we didn't have to pay a big mortgage.
Right, but so your overhead was low.
But that's thank you. That's what
right. But the thing is, though, you retire. I work like 45 hours a week. I travel maybe 10 hours a week back and forth to work. There's so many hours in a day. What do you do?
Right.
How do you occupy that time? Also,
remember that a few weeks would pass, and we would go on a trip.
Right.
That was our way of living. But how did we occupy our time? Well, after we come back from the center.
So you started going to centers. What kind of centers were they?
A center meant that we got later when there was 3.
Right.
We got two meals. We had a breakfast meal, and we got a lunch meal.
Right.
And so Mom and I, we did not have to cook.
But there were other activities, right, at the center?
Right. And at the center, again, that's where I was teaching bridge, and as I told you in the last one, teaching
right.
bridge, and I was learning bridge. We learned, I ran for office.
Right.
I ran for office, and I had trouble with the director of the center, a wonderful woman, but I didn't like certain things.
What was happening?
And they all ganged up on me to beat me. But Alan, other people liked me.
Right.
There was an election where I'm supposed to. Oh yes, there wasn't. Please.
Yeah.
There was
A campaign against you?
The campaign where
Electioneering at the time?
she was a wonderful woman.
Right.
My opponent, my friend. We played bridge together, but they kept it a secret. I never would have run against her. She was the one who was supposed to be elected,
Right.
but they kept it a secret until it was too late.
Right.
And what did they do with her? That poor lady, they put on signs in Yiddish and in Italian and everything, and we had an election. People came from all over. Co-op City, we had many from Co-op City. Almost 100% of the members from Co-op City came here and voted for me.
And it was in the Bronx, right? This is your senior center. Well,
from Co-op City, everything.
No, but I mean, where was it? Which center was this?
It was called
the Eastchester.
The Eastchester Senior Center.
Right, and that's in the Bronx.
That's in the Bronx. That's on Burke Avenue and Boston Road.
Right. Okay.
And we go and we have an election. They also have absentee ballots.
Right.
Mom, oh yeah, we also had trips. Alan, we went to go to the country. We went to the Paramount. We went to the.
Yeah, you went to different in the Catskills. You went to the Catskills. You went to Atlantic City.
Mom didn't want to see me lose and get a beating of my life.
Yeah.
And the day we were electioneering,
Yeah.
they went away.
Right.
Now they had absentee ballots, and she put an absentee ballot.
Right.
So the absentee ballots in a box, and the former president, who didn't like, was walking around with them all the time, absentee ballots. And we start counting the ballots. Oh, they didn't trust me, so they had to have somebody watching the count.
And you're what? You're in your mid-60s. Is that, you know? And they're taking it so seriously.
Oh, serious? They were
like a heart attack serious. I know.
Alan, this is no lie. And at one of the meetings, I won. Wait, I'm going ahead. This guy takes a chair and was going to throw it. Alan, he was going to throw it.
Why did they hate you so much? What did you do?
Don't know.
But you know what you did? One thing you said was that you felt that the senior center, I remember this, was doing things that were not kosher. That wasn't even legal.
Not the senior center. The director.
The director was doing
it. And she
it.
was a good lady. Wait, about the election.
Okay, go on. Go back to
the election.
Yeah.
So here I'm going, and every time they go on, let's say Jane, I forgot her name.
Right.
Jane, yes. Max, yes. Max, yes. Max, yes. Max, Jane, Max. All of a sudden, it's quiet.
Right.
I'm beating her to hell on it.
Yeah.
And I for every 3 I got, she got 2 votes. And Alan, what happened? The counting is over, except one thing, the absentee ballots.
Right.
Now, I don't know anything about absentee,
Right.
and one of them is from Mom. So the lady says to me, the director, you're as good as one,
right?
Because even if you got all the votes,
if the other person got all the absentee ballots, you still had more.
Yes, there were about 25 to 30 votes.
Right.
And I said that the minute I heard it, I'd tell her, give him all those votes, give her all the votes. But believe it or not, 3 people out of all of them. Here I'm winning everything. Right. But just show you what he did with the absentee. 3 ballots were for me. One of them was for Mom.
Right.
Mom, and I won the election.
Right.
And I did some beautiful things.
Right.
And
but I remember I remember that they had a lot of money that they weren't using, and they kept on taking more money from the seniors.
No, wait.
Right.
No, wait. Not only every center was doing that.
Right.
A rumor came, and the city was the one.
Right.
Who was doing it because it's a city. There was a city agency doing it. Now it isn't. They got
privatized, right?
Privatized. The city agency was doing it, and before you know it, we have about. And where did we get the money from? Only from the
lunch
money.
Breakfast.
And later on it was breakfast.
Right.
And again, I'll tell you about breakfast. From the lunch money, all of a sudden we have about $10,000.
Oh my God.
And we would go to the country on some of that money. We go 3
I know, you went on trips all the time.
3 times a year on trips.
Yeah, you'd have also a big meal.
Meals,
buffet.
It was beautiful, Alan. It was beautiful.
Right.
And we went, and after a while, we hear the rumor that the city knows how much money, and they're going to take the money away from us.
Right.
Spend the money. Alan, what we
I
we
know.
went about 5 trips. We
Okay.
were spending
But
money.
I just want to move ahead a little bit on the same topic. So you, at some point, you locked horns with the executive director,
Yes.
and really the people sided with you against the director. What happened to that executive? I mean, first of all, your place, everyone used to come to go dancing, right? Wasn't that the premier
Wait,
folk dancing
the premier,
place?
why? Our director was in charge of the
And that was wonderful, right?
She used to go to dancing school.
Right.
She was wonderful, and she once told me, "You're the only one I didn't ever dance with," and.
Really? You were the only, you never danced with her?
No,
Oh, because you guys hated each other.
No, they wanted me to dance with her.
Yeah.
I said I don't want to.
Right. She was not a, I mean,
She's
as much
a-
as you say she was a wonderful lady,
She's a wonderful lady.
but she didn't do some wonderful things.
And I became the president.
Right.
And wait, the president was every year.
Right.
But when I became president, how can we get rid of him?
Yeah.
We changed the laws.
Term limits.
No, we
Yeah,
changed the
right.
laws. I made it a 2-year.
Right, term limits. That's it.
Every 2 years.
Right.
So one guy actually held us out. They're trying to get rid of you. That's the only way. Wait.
Right.
And you're not allowed to
Run again.
run again. Wait.
Right.
Later on, you can't. So somebody else came in. I came in again after the 2 years.
I know, and you won again.
And they came back to every year. Why? Because here and I was re-elected again.
But I remember, yeah, I also remember that it was wonderful for you and Mom. Mom used to go, and the food was good, the activities were good. And you had good friends there. You had friends that you hadn't seen in years. People from Lakeland were there, right?
Yes.
Educated senior citizens, and you had a really good time.
We all were the same age.
Right.
That is the whole thing.
Right.
And most of it, again, it was 90%, not 90, I was going to say 95, were Jewish people.
Right. And it was nice.
But little by little after that,
Yeah.
when the
it
city
became more diversified.
came, more black people came in.
More diversified,
that's right.
right.
And
So, okay, so that happened. And you stayed home. You lived at the same place, 3127 Mickle Avenue in the Bronx. And then I guess Mom started getting a little bit sicker.
no, wait, we talked about it. No, before that happened, no.
Okay.
We went on trips.
Right, but you went on trips, and you went back and forth to California.
Yes,
you took the kids to
and
trips.
then, after all that
Right,
time,
no, but I'm saying like later.
later on,
Later on, I mean, you stayed there. You had a great life. You did a lot. You went on trips to visit me in California, and you had a really good time.
Right.
But I guess it got to a point where a decision was made due to health reasons that you couldn't stay any longer in the house.
well, a little before that, I took care of her, not knowing.
All right, that's true. You were the caretaker of Mommy. That's
When
right.
I heard that word recently,
Right.
I hated it.
Right.
We were married. We were
Right.
man and
Well,
wife.
that's
and
true. For the last 10 years of Mom's life,
That's right. Don't know that I was doing that. There
you bathed her, you took care of
This
her,
is-
you fed her, you took care. I know
but
that. I mean, it's the truth.
It never occurred to me
Right,
that I'm
but,
doing
but
it.
you're the selfless person. You were that way with your mother. You were that way with your father.
So
were
you
that way
asked
with
me
your
when I
children.
was doing that. It never occurred to me that there's anything special.
Right.
But Alan, you're right.
Right.
That's what.
That's
what
who you are.
happened.
You're,
Right.
you are a selfless person. Everybody else in the family is much more important
Now
than you.
comes the thing. I'm 80 years old. And David says to me one time, it's about time you went to a place where they take care of you.
Right,
You don't have to, we had a house.
right,
You don't have to shovel snow. You
Right.
don't have to do this. You don't have to do that.
right.
Mom says, I'm not going.
I know. I remember. She said
And
she's
she
not
said-
leaving. Right. I remember.
This is, I'm living here all my life.
Right.
I'm going to die here.
Right, but I remember one thing happened. I mean, the health, Mom was lucky. I mean, when you had your heart attack, first of all, in 1998 or 1997, I think it was 98, if it wasn't for Mom calling the ambulance,
ambulance.
you probably would have been dead.
We
But
don't-
that being said, as Mommy's progressed negatively, there was no way that she could stay in the house anymore, and she was falling.
Yes.
And you were at a point in life, you were in mid 90s, that you couldn't pick her up anymore. So you decided to go to Kate House.
Kate House.
And, Mom loved Kate House, right? I mean, she loved it.
Yeah. How it
Cathay
happened?
House, by the way, is assisted. They lived he still does,
Yes.
an independent living community in the Bronx called Cathay House.
And knowing that she says, I'm not going to move, she realized, we realized, it's time to
Right, to move.
To move.
The family convinced you, and you
Yes.
and you guys realized it.
They were the happiest people in the world.
And
They
Mom
said-
at first said, no, I don't want to go. And Mom was the happiest. Come on. When we used to go,
Oh, yes.
she was so happy.
Alan,
Yes.
and I used to drive at that time.
Right,
yet,
that's true.
And she would sit near something wrong with her. She'd have to go to the bathroom many
Right.
times. So she'd sit right now. Here's the bathroom. Here she sits.
Right.
I'm reading a book.
Oh, yeah. Mom always read. Mom
Wait a
always
minute.
read.
Not on. Mac, you should say, Max, what a book. Here, get me another one in the library. And I would bring her a book.
Right, okay.
Max.
And then also, one thing I would say, because we used to visit Mom and you, and as soon with the kids, and I just remember Mom's face always lighting up, saying, "Kara, Aaron." I mean, her face would, like she'd be looking down and look up, and she was the happiest person in the world, until, she. Mom, I
Not
remember
until when she was born. Finally, another girl in the
No,
house.
well, I'm talking about in terms of well, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about she was happy until she fell the final time, and she wound up breaking her hip. And that was unfortunately the beginning of the end for,
Yes.
for Bubby,
Yes.
my mom. And, she went to Montefiore Medical Center, right? And she was on the mend. She had got surgery. She
Yes,
was
right.
ready. She was ready to go to physical therapy, and you had visited her with David. What, about
Yes.
a half hour before?
That's right.
And then I get a call on the way home from work on the subway, and my brother tells me that Mom died, and they said I can't tell Daddy, and Mimi wasn't around, my sister, so I have to be the one who tells my father that my mother died, and that was
When
so
when you came in
yes.
and told me that, I don't know. I was shocked.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I walked in.
You walked. Yes.
I walked in and
We were
I had
eating.
I walked in and I had I couldn't before I got to the table, I just broke down. I couldn't and you were eating, but it was like, and then I just remember that you were devastated. The whole family was devastated, and we brought you upstairs, and we packed a bag and brought you to Mimi's house. And on the way to Mimi's house, you said something to me that you were devastated, but you also said that I have to start my life again right now. That you were not gonna, you weren't gonna follow suit with Mommy. And that today was the beginning of a new life. And it wasn't a negative thing. In other words, you could have wallowed in self-pity and all this stuff, but you made the decision to be optimistic about the future.
Even optimistic by saying this. Mom died, we all died.
Absolutely.
That's what I said. We all died.
That's what you said.
And a second later,
Right.
a new life started.
That's absolutely right. So that's going to be really where I'm going to start maybe the final line of questioning, which is basically this is your whole philosophy of life.
Yes.
And your philosophy of life, if I could say it, and maybe you could, if I'm right about this, two major themes is optimism.
Optimism.
And the other thing is luck. Because, and you always talk about luck, and David always says, Dad always talks about luck. David's my brother. And tell me about your philosophy of life.
And that's what it is. And I'm glad. How I got it, I don't know. Or if you could say, after I was shot, I looked out of the window.
Right.
When I looked out of that window,
And it was
oh wait,
June
before
23rd.
that, doctors came over to me and said, where is that guy who got shot on the left side and still is alive?
Right.
How they could even say it to me. And I looked outside and I said, I could have been dead, and I'm alive, and look at this.
Right.
Something has to be, and Alan, I
know,
must have
I
changed
know.
my life that one day.
But you were lucky before then, Daddy.
All right. Okay,
How about
I
it?
don't know,
No, World War
but
II.
I'm talking, here, I'm shot and I'm not dead.
Right, and World War II, you were lucky.
Oh.
The Battle of Bulge, which you talked about, you were lucky.
No. Lucky, again, doing things that I'm supposed to do, or
Right.
doing things that I was against, in
Right.
other words, against me, that was also luck.
Right, you were lucky. Everything that, for whatever reason, almost everything, every possible situation that could have had a negative,
That's right. Alan,
a negative thing. That's why you're 98 years
Alan,
old. For whatever, it's the same thing when I was a kid. You always tell me the stories when I was sitting with you on the mangle, which we talked about in other episodes. Every time in life that you came to a fork in the road, for whatever reason, you were lucky enough to choose the right the right side of the fork.
And many times I'd ask, what should I do? And who did I ask them? To you.
That's it. And then a lot of times I tell you to do this, and they say, no, I'll do it the right way.
We'll go the other.
But so again, so your philosophy, I mean, is that what you would tell people to do? I mean,
yes, Alan, I'm stopping it. They think I'm crazy.
Right.
We sit at a table,
Right.
4 people, and
and these people are your age, or older, or younger.
One of them is 2 years younger than me.
Yeah, but still,
and the
2
other
years is 96.
I know it. And the other, they're all about 85, from 85 up.
Right.
And my children are no good. They do this, and then when I say something, they look at me as if I'm Alan.
I know.
I'm the only. Maybe I'm the only one. Here, I brought you up a few times to see, and you saw how I acted with a person in the chair and.
Right. You're always not, and you make them feel good. And you're like the master of ceremonies,
Yeah.
and you are. How about when new people come to the club? Yes.
Alan, when new people
Not
come
to club. I mean to Cathay House.
to the I call it to the Cathay House. New people, usually they're in a chair. No one, Alan, it breaks your heart. No one comes to talk to them. And so I go over there, I joke around, and if it's a woman, I usually go, no, a woman, I'll listen to it, you know what I do.
Do it.
I turn around either way, and they're wondering what I'm doing, and then I go over to, if I'm not near the one I love the one.
I know, and you make them feel good. And how many of these women who've been, their husbands have died and all this, how many of them have you asked to dance when there was times to dance? I mean, you ask them all to dance.
I asked them all to dance. And again, one of them sitting next to my table was an ordinary,
Right.
a woman. But what happened? I asked her to dance, and after that, I went out with her.
Right, you went out with a couple of girls there, and that's it.
Girls,
but also,
no.
The other thing is, though, that you met people that you knew from your neighborhood, right? You met a person who you knew from when you were, 90 years ago, right? I mean, it's...
How about you? I want to tell that to you.
Okay, you can tell it.
Yeah. This lady, first of all, we were listening to a lecture, and we were asked where we lived, and I said, I lived on 528 East 136th Street. And while I'm talking, the lady interrupts me. You lived in 528? I lived in 520? Fine. By the way, did you know in 528 the Bendich twins?
And the Bendich twins happens to be your brothers.
I didn't even tell the people around me. Looked at me amazed.
Right.
And now I said, you want to know something? Many times I'd run over to my mother. I'd say, Mama, Joseph and Aaron are beating me up. What do you mean? I said, they were my brothers. Right. Can you imagine, out of the blue, a lady?
And how many, 90 years later?
No.
85 years later? I mean,
I'm 98. She's 96. My children were my brothers and sisters.
Right, but I'm saying it's 90 years later, 80 years later, whatever it is.
She still remembers.
How could they, it's amazing. And they were memorable people. And it's been an amazing journey, I mean, I'm just amazed by the Bendich family. I mean, look at Aaron, you look at Cousin Albert. We never discussed him, but Cousin Albert was Lenny Bruce's attorney. He was Allen Ginsberg's attorney. He's a movie producer.
And when the movie...
Lord of the Rings, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, all these things.
No, the most important one was...
Amadeus. Well, also, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, their company was co-executive produced with Michael Douglas. I mean, they came from the same shtetl, I mean, that your great-grandfather came from. I mean, it's your cousin Al. And you think about, I also think, I start thinking about, what happened to the Jews during World War II and how there's only, less than 15 million Jews, I think, in the world. Whatever that number is, and it's just amazing, the accomplishments, at least in our family, that, I mean, education is, the other thing about you was that how important education was.
That's right. There it was. I couldn't do it. Why? I was making money when as a kid.
Right, I know.
Almost as much as my father.
Right.
And I went and I
and
gave it to the family.
Right.
And
and the other thing was that, I guess there was a decision made in your family that Aaron had the best shot because he was the smartest.
yes.
And there, we have to be honest about it. I mean, but some people say
Yes.
that you were the smartest.
No.
But Aaron was an exceptional person, and you didn't have two dimes to put together. I mean,
And we were lucky again.
yeah.
He went to City College.
I know, very lucky.
And it didn't cost us anything.
But what it did cost was another pair of hands that couldn't give money into the family.
That's right.
But the contribution, I just look at the contributions that some of the people in the family made, and I'm still amazed. I'm just amazed that it came out of that guy Abraham in Nova Konstantinov, years ago, and your great grandmother. What was her name? Your grandmother's name? Bubshikol. What was her name?
No, I don't remember.
Isn't that something? It's terrible that we don't have those details.
Again,
and it's a shame that who was your uncle, he died at like 105, 106 years old. We could have gotten that information, but it's probably out there. We could find out.
And remember one thing.
Yeah.
Before I have it talking on the computer.
Right.
We're talking to each other. Alan, my children, you, Alan, you, David, and Miriam, did a good job for me. No, really.
Yeah.
You made my life. You made it by living the way you were living.
Right.
You made my life that much easier for me.
I appreciate that. I'm sure we made it a little bit. There were a couple of twists and turns, but we did it. And look, I mean, I know you love your grandchildren. I know you love your great-grandchildren. I mean, and the one thing I really, again, going back to Mom, I just remember that she was so in love with the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, and I know she wanted so much to see her, because they're interesting. They're all interesting. I mean, like my son, let me talk about Aaron. Because why not? You're here. I mean, Aaron and Kara. But I'd like to talk just a couple of moments. I mean, Aaron's at Vassar. He has his own radio show. He has his own band. He's having a wonderful life. And Kara, she's doing well in high school. She has great friends, and she's a tutor. I mean, how great is life when you see your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, Gaby and Michael and everybody else?
I want to tell you about your grandmother.
Okay.
She saw you sitting at the piano.
Right.
You couldn't even reach your feet to the thing. You were sitting at the piano in Camp Kinderland.
I remember.
And you were on Yachnes. We have that picture.
Yes.
And there's a little kid playing the piano, and everybody.
I must have been about 5 years old, 6 years old.
And the place was mobbed.
I know. It was they called it the casino.
I don't remember.
But it was it was a wonderful place, and you gave us you really did give us wonderful cultural background. I mean, we always. You taught us about folk music. You taught us about classical music. Oh. You taught us about everything.
Wait, how we did it, I don't know. What started it? We went down to 14th Street to Washington Square,
right.
And in Washington Square, maybe you could describe it better.
There's a big circle. Believe me, everyone knows Washington Square.
Everybody, and all of a sudden, and there were places you could sit down,
right.
And somebody would come over and sit down and with a guitar,
right.
And then.
And playing folk music.
And play folk music, and I would bring you there.
You took the whole family.
I took you all there.
We went to picnics with Pete Seeger, the National Guardian picnic with Pete. We went to concerts. We went to demonstrations against the war. Why were we like that? Because of you.
Wait a minute.
And that's the bottom line.
If you remember, so we're listening to Pete Seeger, who's sitting in the front on the chair on the ground, David and the rest of them, and all of a sudden they were.
I know. Well, I remember. But
I know. Embarrassing.
It's okay. But,
your brother.
But that's okay. I mean, David did very well in life.
Yes.
And it's
everyone did. Look.
And Daddy, it really. I mean, it's all everything that you and Mom did. You gave up everything, but at the same time, you gave everything. You gave us culture. You gave us Jewish traditions. You gave us. And the other thing that's interesting, which I only have a moment to say, is that for a non-religious person growing up, a secular person, you did have an appreciation for both Judaism and the traditions for Judaism.
Right.
And Dad, I appreciate it. The entire family appreciates it. And I loved it. It was such a wonderful. I appreciate everything you've done. And that's a wrap.